hike to the summit. It's very small, but the winds were 50 to 60 miles an hour, so it was pretty awesome up there. And no one had been up there for days. You could tell by the having to break snow in about probably 12 to 18 inches of snow. Snowshoes were a must there. And speaking of snowshoes, if you are listening and planning to do some winter hiking this year, I highly recommend it. And snowshoes are a must-have when the snow is 8 inches or more. You must have them on your pack, and you should be putting them on your feet, but you actually have to have them with you to go into the backcountry. But I like to put them on when there's like 4 to 5 inches of fresh snow on the trail. It actually just makes it easier to hike. You put them on your feet. Now they're off your backpack for starters, so that's not bad. But, you just don't slip and slide as much. Obviously, your foot is gigantic at that point. You have like a big Sasquatch foot, so that's good. And, yes, I highly recommend putting them on around that kind of 4 to 5 inch mark as opposed to the 8 inches. It makes the trail better. And on top of that, it's easier to hike. So to me, that's a win-win. Moving on. Episode 35, we hit the Lower Great Range Revisited, the Winter Edition. Now, this was quite the day. I learned a lot about my body and winter hiking on this day. So, that was another day where we planned to sunrise. We didn't even come close to getting where we had planned to go. But that day we were going to be hiking Sawteeth and then the Lower Great Range. So Sawteeth and then up over Pyramid to Gothics, Armstrong, Upper Wolfjaw, Lower Wolfjaw, and back out starting at the St. Hubert. And that day I hiked with Jonathan again, Kira again, and Brian Twardy. Shout out to all three of you. That was a very fun day on the trail for the second half. The first half, I shouldn't say the first half, I'd say the first quarter was fine. Walking the 3.5 miles down the lake road was nothing, no big deal. And then we started hiking up Sawteeth. And we did not go up the scenic trail. We went up the other trail, which actually, the name of it escapes me at this point, what it's called. I'm having a brain fart. What is that trail called? Oh, I can't remember. But anyways, we went up that trail, went up Sawteeth, and then towards the top, Jonathan was like, count to 46 steps. So I counted 46 steps, and I said, okay, now what? He said, okay, do it again. And we did it again. Okay, now what? Okay, do it again. He was trying to guess that when we'd be 46 steps away from the trail split to go over to Sawteeth, and he was dead wrong so many times. But that was quite the day. But what I learned that day, because once we got to the trail junction for Sawteeth, we actually all dropped pack to run up to Sawteeth. And this was, so our plan was to get to Gothics for sunrise. So we'd have to go up Sawteeth, up and over Pyramid, and then to Gothics for the sunrise. We did not make it. But we did, however, get to go to Sawteeth completely in the middle of the night. So that was the first time, and at this point, the only time that I've ever been on a high peak flat out in the middle of the night, on the summit, just completely in the middle of the night. It was probably, I don't know. I don't remember what time we started, but it was also another like maybe 1:30 start time for the day. Which, not that bad. I like to start early, as a lot of you know on the podcast, and a lot of the haters hate me for recommending people starting early because obviously I live here, so it's easier for me to do, but it doesn't make a difference to me. Where a person lives, starting earlier than later is going to be ideal. So whatever that looks like for you, I just recommend starting earlier. But for me, starting at even 1:30, it's like obviously sucks and is brutal and is stupid and you hate everything in the moment, but it does allow for some pretty cool situations out there on the trail. But yeah, we got up to Sawteeth, and as we were going up Sawteeth, it was a steep climb, and the snow was just like not, one of those days in the snow where it's like you just can't get any traction. It's every step, the snow just collapses under you and collapses, and it's just like every step is so much work. That was what it was like getting up Sawteeth. And then as we got back down Sawteeth and got back to our backpacks, because Jonathan was on a mission and he was trying to take some sunrise photos, him and Brian took off ahead of us to try to just send it straight up Pyramid, which is a very steep climb. And it's ironic that it's actually not an official quote-unquote high peak, even though it is over 4,000 feet. But it's the hardest part of the day by far on this hike, going up and over that because it's so steep, so much elevation gain in like a half a mile. So they sent it right up that. So props to both of you guys for breaking out that trail. That trail was absolutely gnarly what you guys broke out. Easily 3 to 4 feet of snow. I remember seeing their tracks as Kira and I were going up and just thinking, thank God those two went first. Brian loves breaking out trail, and I think Jonathan does too. So, I appreciate you guys because I don't like breaking trail. I'd rather just have a nice smooth sailing trip up the mountain. But also a big shout out to Kira because that day, as I mentioned, what I learned about my body, I was cramping up like I've never experienced. Every step, like my quads would just tighten and Charlie horse. Each step tighten and Charlie horse. And it was terrible because in the winter, it's so easy to forget to eat and hydrate. In the summertime, you usually have a bladder on your pack, so it's like you're just constantly sipping water. Whereas in the winter, at least for me, when I hike, I bring, because the bladder hoses freeze. And yeah, I know you can get bladder hoses, insulators, and all that jazz, but I just don't have them. So I usually bring 3 to 4 1-liter Nalgene's with me in my pack, and to drink is like, it's a thing. You kind of stop and you hike, and then you stop and again you take a drink, and it's like it becomes a thing to like take a drink, but also you're not as sweaty and hot, so you don't think about drinking. So for me that day, I just was not drinking and eating. So I hiked Sawteeth, and then over to, I don't know, maybe like quarter of the way up Pyramid before I had anything. So I remember just my body was shutting the F down. It was not good. Shout out to Kira for dealing with my complaining I was doing that day. It was just stupid. She laughed a bunch. You can actually hear her chuckling behind some of the sound bites in my podcast about my complaining about the day. Because, again, as I mentioned, every step was just like so much work. And then on top of it, the fact that like I was cramping up like I've never experienced in my legs was not looking good for me. And then we got up to Pyramid. Thank the Lord we made it to the summit of Pyramid. And yeah, dude, I didn't know if I was going to stop that day and go home after Gothics. I was like, I might just go over to Gothics, take the Beaver Meadow Trail down and just call it. But I hadn't really told any of them at this point how much I was struggling, but I was struggling tremendously. And but anyways, then we went down, had some food at the top of Pyramid, went down Pyramid onto Gothics. From Pyramid to Gothics is not too bad. It's pretty quick. Not too bad that day especially. Still a little steep, but overall not too bad. But then, boom, once we got to Gothics, the body kind of like was working again, was working okay. And then from Gothics to we getting to the Beaver Meadow Trail, where I was either going to call it or keep going, everything kind of felt good and felt normal again. So that was good. And then we finished the day, which was fantastic. And it was completed after we did Armstrong over to Upper Wolfjaw and then to Lower Wolfjaw. And then we had the butt slide of all butt slides down Lower Wolfjaw. It's by far the most fun, like 60 seconds I've ever had hiking. We basically slid almost the entire way down Lower Wolfjaw from the summit to that half-mile trail split marker. Legitimately slid down the entire thing. Didn't pass anyone. And again, when you're butt sliding, be careful, be able to stop, don't get out of control because you can easily hurt yourself and someone coming up the trail. But it's not too difficult to just stop on a dime when doing that. But it saves a lot of time and it's just fun. And then from there, we basically butt slid like almost all the way down Lower Wolfjaw. Super fun day. Shout out to all of you guys for another very fun Bluebird. Well, Bluebird-ish. It became Bluebird. It didn't start that way. It was actually pretty gnarly up on top of Gothics, but it eventually became just another fantastic winter day out in the high peaks. So that's episode 35 if you are into winter hiking and want to hear some more. And then episode 36, the very first Summit Sessions. The single-season Winter 46 with Jonathan Zaharik. So I put out these Summit Session episodes this year because I wanted to gain a new audience and have a whole new format possibility. because I know a lot of people with podcasts, they prefer people talking in interviews and, that kind of conversational episodes. Whereas for me, those really aren't typically the type of podcast that I listen to. I'm more of like the true crime, really highly edited type of podcast. That's just like what I listen to. I don't really listen to many conversational, interviewee type episodes. So my natural instinct was to make the podcast that I made. But I wanted to do that to the Summit Sessions because I felt it was a cool way to have a whole other type of content and bring in new listeners who would be interested in that sort of thing. And then we could actually talk about subjects within the high peaks and within the Adirondacks and the outdoors in general. And it's taken off very well. People seem to really like them so far, which is good. And that is no credit to me and all the credit to the guests that come on the show and what they do and what they bring to the table. And with the Summit Sessions, I personally kind of pick a subject that I want to talk about, and then I fill in the guest accordingly. So, if I wanted to talk about bushwhacking or ultra hiking or the Northville Placid Trail, that I want the subject to be the star of the show, and then the guest is kind of the expert on that subject. So that's how I kind of decide what type of episodes I put out with the Summit Sessions, and then I try to just steer the ship so much. But so that was how the Summit Sessions began, and obviously there's been a butt ton of them this year because they're also a lot faster to make than my Trip Report Trail episodes. The Summit Sessions require maybe like a half hour before an interview of just prepping the interview and what I'm going to do and ask and all that stuff, and then I do the episode, and then maybe a half hour of editing, and then boom, it's done. So they're pretty quick, and that's one thing that has allowed me to pump out so much content this year's incorporating Summit Sessions episodes. And they're fun too. It's fun to just talk shop with people. But that first episode, we went through Jonathan Zaharic's single season Winter 46 that he successfully accomplished in 2020. Congratulations to John on setting that goal and freaking crushing it, quite frankly, including hiking McNaughton at the end of the season. But moving forward now, there was a whole nother format, the Adirondack Campfire Stories.
This is a 46 of 46 podcast campfire story.
And this episode 37, put out on March 13th, my older brother's birthday, was entitled A Scary Night on the Sacandaga River. So the campfire stories, I'm going to be honest, I have the most fun with those stories. I just find them very fun to just make. The episodes are fun. Like everything else, they require so much work. Writing the story, rewriting the story, and then rewriting the story again, and getting it to the point where I'm good with it, and then recording it, and editing it, and then adding all the sound and all the editing that goes with those stories. But when they're all done, I find them quite fun. They're fun to write, they're fun to make, and I'm so stoked that they have taken off as well as they have. I get more people probably telling me how much they like the campfire stories than any of the other episodes, so that's fun for me. This episode, A Scary Night on the Sacandaga River, I don't know if I've publicly mentioned it, but I got this story, or I heard the story on an episode of, drumroll, Sasquatch Chronicles, which I've talked about on this podcast before, and I'll probably talk about it again on this episode. But Sasquatch Chronicles, I heard that story, and I turned it into a campfire story. It's a true story. Everything in it is completely fact. So take that with what you will. Moving forward, we're going to do some more Summit Sessions episodes. We're just kicking off this new format here on the show. We got some multiple formats. You don't know what type of show it's going to be on Friday. Is it going to be a trip report? Is it going to be a Summit Session? Is it going to be an Adirondack campfire story? Or am I going to put out a totally different type of episode? You just never know here on the 46 of 46 podcast. So I like to keep you all guessing. Even the haters. I like to keep the haters guessing too. All of you. I don't want you to ever know what's coming. But episode 38, the Summit Sessions number 2, the gear episode with Kenny Kendall. Kenny has been described as an REI magazine with a mouth. He is so intelligent and smart, and he just likes gear. He is a gearhead, and I am not. In anything I've ever done in life, be it, music, gear, work gear I use for work.